4 years later, Karla Henderson Winters adjusted her diamond earrings as her assistant handed her the phone. The marble floors of her penthouse office gleamed beneath her Louboutin heels. "Ma'am, there's someone on line 3. Says it's urgent." A Nick Miller? Karla's blood turned to ice. After 3 years of silence, he was calling her? "Transfer it," she said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing in her chest. The voice that came through the speaker was broken, desperate, nothing like the arrogant man who'd once thrown her out like garbage. "Karla, please. I know I have no right to ask, but I'm begging you." She closed her eyes, remembering everything. The rain, the suitcases, the betrayal that had nearly destroyed her. And then she smiled. "I'm sorry, Nick, but I learned something very important from you 4 years ago. But let's start from the beginning." Hello, friends. Welcome to Fablethorn, where love stories breathe, hearts break, and hope always lingers. Subscribe now so you never miss a story. Tells us in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to know how far our stories have traveled. The pregnancy test trembled in Karla's hands like a leaf in a hurricane. 2 pink lines. Twins. She sat on the bathroom floor of the apartment she shared with Nick, rain hammering against the window like an omen. 2 weeks without a job. 2 weeks of his cold silences and bitter comments about dead weight and freeloaders. How could she tell him about the babies when he could barely look at her? A key turned in the front door. Nick was home early. "Karla?" His voice carried that edge that made her stomach clench. "We need to talk." She shoved the test into her purse, her hands shaking. Maybe if she told him about the job interview tomorrow. Maybe if she... But when she stepped into the living room, her world tilted off its axis. Her suitcases sat by the door like accusations. Nick stood beside them, his face carved from stone. "I can't do this anymore," he said without looking at her. "I won't keep carrying someone who can't pull their weight." "Nick, please." "No?" He turned toward the bedroom. "You have until I get back from the gym to be gone." The door slammed. Karla stared at her suitcases, at the life she'd built crumbling around her feet, and pressed her hand to her stomach where 2 tiny hearts had just started beating. She had nowhere to go except Maya's apartment. Her best friend since college would help her figure this out. If only she knew what Maya was really doing. "That bastard!" Maya's voice cracked with what sounded like genuine outrage as she pulled Karla into her apartment. "How dare he throw you out like that? You're better off without him." For 2 weeks, Karla tried to rebuild herself in Maya's guest room. She continued job hunting while battling morning sickness she attributed to stress. Maya was working late every night at her law firm, coming home exhausted and distracted. "I'm sorry I can't spend more time helping you," Maya would say, avoiding eye contact. "This case is killing me." Karla didn't mind. Maya was already doing so much, giving her a safe place to land. She couldn't burden her friend with the news about the pregnancy. Not yet. But secrets have a way of demanding attention. The night Maya texted that she'd be working until midnight again, Karla made a decision. She would go to Nick. She would tell him about the twins, maybe when he knew he was going to be a father. She had no idea she was walking into a trap that would shatter her world forever. Her key still worked. The house was dark except for warm light spilling from the kitchen and voices that made her blood freeze in her veins. Nick's laugh. And another laugh she knew better than her own. Maya. Karla moved through the shadows of her former home like a ghost, each step bringing the voices into sharper, more devastating focus. "Can't believe how easy this has been," Maya was saying. "She's so trusting. Almost pathetic, really." "Don't." Nick's voice carried a warning. "She's not a bad person." "Isn't she, though?" I mean, who loses a job and then just gives up? At least now you don't have to pretend to care about her anymore. Karla reached the kitchen doorway and her soul shattered. Nick sat at their dining table, their table where they'd planned their future over morning coffee, with his arms wrapped around Maya. Both wore bathrobes, and Maya's head rested against Nick's shoulder with the casual intimacy of lovers who'd long ago stopped hiding. The ultrasound photo in Karla's purse seemed to burn against her hip. How long? The words escaped her lips like a prayer to God who'd stopped listening. They sprang apart like guilty teenagers caught in the act. Maya's face went white as parchment, while Nick looked like he'd been slapped. Karla, Maya scrambled to her feet. This isn't... I can explain. How long? Each word dropped like a stone into still water. Nick lifted his chin with defiance that twisted the knife deeper. 8 months. 8 months. While she'd been worried about their marriage, about their fights, about their future, they'd been building one without her. While she'd been sleeping in Maya's guest room, grateful for her friend's kindness, Maya had been sleeping in Nick's bed. Maya? Karla turned to the woman who'd held her while she cried over every heartbreak, who'd promised to be her maid of honor, who'd sworn they'd be friends until they were old and gray. 8 months? Maya's silence was louder than a scream. I trusted you, Karla whispered, and the words came out bloody. I trusted both of you. She turned and ran, leaving behind the life she'd thought was hers, and the people who'd proven it never was. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The streets blurred past through her tears as Karla walked aimlessly through the city. She'd been walking for hours, her feet numb in her heels when her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Ms. Karla Henderson? The voice was crisp, professional, tinged with something that sounded like excitement? Yes? This is James Morrison from Morrison, Blake & Associates. I represent your late uncle, Edward Henderson. Ms. Henderson, I have some extraordinary news that will change your life forever. Karla stopped walking. Uncle Edward, her father's twin brother, the man she'd barely known due to some ancient family war involving her mother. I'm afraid your uncle passed last week, but he's left you something that will ensure you never want for anything again. Could you come to my office first thing tomorrow morning? And, Ms. Henderson? The lawyer's voice carried a smile. You might want to sit down when we meet. That night, Karla slept on a park bench, her jacket pulled tight against the cold, one hand pressed protectively over her stomach where 2 tiny lives grew in secret. She had no idea she was about to become one of the wealthiest women in the country. $200 million. James Morrison's words hung in the air of his mahogany-paneled office like something too big to comprehend. Karla stared at the papers spread across his desk, numbers that looked like phone numbers rather than dollar amounts. Plus the Rosewood estate, a 40-room mansion on 300 acres. Your uncle was quite successful in his investments. Oil, tech, real estate. He never married, never had children. You're his sole heir. Karla's hand instinctively moved to her purse, where the ultrasound photo waited like a secret promise. There's more, Morrison continued, his eyes twinkling. The estate comes with a full staff who've been paid handsomely to maintain it. You could move in today if you wanted. Your uncle left specific instructions that his niece should never want for anything. By sunset, Karla stood in the marble foyer of Rosewood Manor, a palace that belonged in fairy tales. Mrs. Chen, the silver-haired housekeeper, showed her to a suite larger than most houses. Will there be anything else, miss? Mrs. Chen asked kindly. Karla pressed both hands to her stomach. Actually, yes. Could you recommend the very best obstetrician in the city? Nick and Maya had thrown her away like garbage. They had no idea they'd just discarded a queen. Dr. Charles Winters had gentle hands and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He was there when James and Emma took their first breaths on a snowy February morning, staying late to ensure both babies were perfect and healthy. "You're an amazing mother," he told Karla during a follow-up visit, his smile warm as he watched her juggle both infants with practiced ease. "They're lucky to have you." Dr. Charles Winters became more than her doctor. At first, he was simply kind, showing up with warm coffee and words of encouragement when she was too exhausted to keep going. Later, he became her friend, the one person who reminded her she was more than her pain. One day, when the twins were 6 months old, Charles stayed for dinner after a checkup. Between baby giggles and clinking glasses, Karla realized she was laughing, really laughing, for the first time in over a year. "You don't just want them healthy," Charles said softly, watching her with something like admiration. "You want to build a life worthy of them. That's why you'll succeed." His words lit a fire in her. She poured her inheritance into reviving a neglected hotel. Then another. Then a third. With each grand opening, her name grew. Within 18 months, Henderson Hospitality was the most coveted brand in the state. While the babies napped, Karla threw herself into business with laser focus. Henderson Hospitality started with one of her uncle's neglected properties, a beautiful but run-down hotel that she transformed into a luxury destination. Her attention to detail was legendary. Her treatment of employees was generous but demanding. Her instincts for what wealthy clients wanted were flawless. Within 18 months, she owned a chain of the most exclusive hotels and event venues in the state. The business world whispered about the mysterious Kay Henderson, the reclusive mogul who'd appeared from nowhere and conquered everything she touched. But the best was yet to come. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning as Karla reviewed contracts in her home office, 3-year-old James and Emma building castles with golden blocks at her feet. Subject: "You're invited. Hope you can afford to come. LOL." Her blood turned to ice when she saw the sender. nick.miller.patterson@gmail.com. "Hey Karla, Maya and I are finally getting married. I know this might be weird, but we figured you should know how well we're doing. I got that big promotion to senior manager, the one I always wanted but could never get while I was stressed about supporting you. So we're having the wedding at the fanciest place in the city, the Grand Rosewood Ballroom. The venue cost us a fortune, but Maya says we deserve the best. Hope you can make it, though I know money's probably tight for you. Maybe you could help serve or something? The staff there are always hiring, and you did always say you'd take any job. Hope life's treating you okay. Maya sometimes wonders if you ever found work. Nick. P.S. Thanks for the life lesson about dead weight. The best thing that ever happened to me was learning to cut loose the people who drag you down." Karla read the email 3 times before the cosmic irony fully hit her. The Grand Rosewood Ballroom, the crown jewel of her empire, the venue that commanded $75,000 for a single evening. She picked up her phone and dialed her events manager. "Sarah? It's Karla. I need you to check Saturday's booking. The Patterson Maya wedding reception?" She listened, her smile growing wider. "Perfect. Clear my schedule. I'll be attending this one personally." They thought they were inviting a broken woman to witness their triumph. Instead, they just invited a lioness to her own arena. Saturday evening found Karla in her dressing room at the manor, Charles adjusting his platinum cufflinks while the twins played with toy cars worth more than most people's monthly salaries. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" Charles asked gently. "We could still spend the evening at home with ice cream and movies." Karla looked at herself in the mirror. Valentino gown that cost more than Nick's car. Diamond earrings that had belonged to European royalty. Hair swept into a chignon that whispered elegance and power. "I've been certain about this for 3 years," she said softly. "They threw me away when they thought I was worthless. Tonight, they learn exactly what they discarded." The limousine pulled up to the Grand Rosewood just as guests were arriving for cocktail hour. Through the tinted windows, Karla spotted Nick and Maya on the red carpet. Him in an ill-fitting rental tux, her in a dress that was pretty but obviously off the rack. They looked small. "Ready, Mommy?" Emma asked, taking her hand with the unconscious confidence of a child who'd never known want. "Ready, sweetheart." The limousine door opened, and Karla Henderson made her entrance. Every head turned. Conversations died. The photographer abandoned the wedding couple to capture the mysterious woman in midnight blue who moved like royalty and commanded attention like gravity. Nick's champagne glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. Maya actually stumbled backward. Karla glided through the crowd with serene confidence, accepting murmured compliments from other guests who assumed she was someone extraordinarily important, which of course she was. "Hello, Nick." Her voice carried the authority of boardrooms and the grace of queens. "Maya, how lovely to see you both." "Karla?" Nick's voice cracked like a teenager's. "You... how did you... what are you doing here?" Maya couldn't speak at all. She just stared, her mouth opening and closing like a fish drowning in air. "Oh, didn't I mention in my RSVP?" Karla's smile was enigmatic, dangerous. "I own this place. The Grand Rosewood, the Platinum Palace downtown, the Sapphire Resort in the mountains, all mine. Henderson Hospitality." She gestured around the opulent ballroom with casual ownership. "Perhaps you've heard of it?" The silence that followed was so complete that the orchestra seemed loud in comparison. "But..." Nick's face had gone gray. "You were on Maya's couch. You had no job. You were..." "I was pregnant with twins," Karla said simply, and the words dropped like bombs. "James and Emma. Your children, Nick, though they'll never know it." She gestured to Charles, who stepped forward with quiet dignity. "This is my fiancé, Dr. Charles Winters, their father in every way that matters." The crowd around them had stopped pretending not to listen. A wedding reception had become a public execution. "Children?" Nick whispered, his face crumbling. "Karla, if I had known..." "You would have what?" Karla's voice cut like crystal. "Kept me around as a convenience? Let me stay in your house like a charity case while you planned your future with my best friend?" She turned to Maya, who'd pressed herself against the wall like she was trying to disappear. "Did you know, Maya? When you were comforting me in your apartment, letting me cry on your shoulder about my marriage falling apart, did you know you were already sleeping with my husband? Did you laugh about it together?" Maya's silence was answer enough. Karla looked around the ballroom, her ballroom, filled with guests who were witnessing the most dramatic reversal of fortune most had ever seen. "I want you both to know something," she continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. "Your deposit was non-refundable. Enjoy your reception. Enjoy your marriage. And Nick?" She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow seemed louder than shouting. "Thank you. Throwing me out was the best thing you ever did for me." She turned to leave, then paused, the actress delivering her final line. "Oh, and Maya? You were right about one thing. I did learn not to let dead weight drag me down." As Karla turned to leave, she passed Maya, who was pale and shaking. "You always said you wanted the truth, Karla," Maya whispered. "Now you have it. I hope it was worth losing everything." Karla paused, her gaze cool. "Oh, Maya," she said with a faint smile. "I didn't lose everything. I gained myself. The game was won, but the final move was still to come." 2 years later, the knock came on a night when autumn rain painted patterns on the windows of Rosewood Manor. Karla was in her study, reviewing plans for Henderson Hospitality's expansion into Europe, when Mrs. Chen appeared in the doorway. "Miss, there's a gentleman at the door. He says it's urgent. A Mr. Nick Miller?" Karla's pen stopped moving. She'd wondered when this moment would come. She found him on her doorstep, and time had not been kind. His clothes were wrinkled and cheap, his hair unwashed, his eyes hollow with the particular desperation of a man who'd lost everything. "Karla." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Please, I need to talk to you." She didn't invite him in. Rain soaked his shoulders as he stood there like a beggar at the gates of a castle. "What do you want, Nick?" "I lost my job 8 months ago. Maya." His voice broke. "Maya left me 6 months later. Said she couldn't handle being poor again. The house is gone. The car's gone. Everything's gone." Karla listened without expression, remembering another rainy night when she'd stood in similar desperation. "I heard about your success, about how incredibly wealthy you are now. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm begging you." "Stop!" Her voice cut through the rain. "Let me save you some time, Nick. You want me to help you. You want me to give you money or a job or a place to stay. You want me to save you from the consequences of your choices." He nodded eagerly, hope flickering in his eyes. "Do you remember what you told me when I lost my job? When I was desperate and had nowhere to go?" His face crumpled. "Karla, please. You told me you wouldn't keep paying rent for dead weight. You told me I needed to find somewhere else to stay. You put my suitcases on the steps in the rain." She stepped closer and he flinched. "I was carrying your children, Nick. Twins. And you threw me away like garbage. I didn't know. It wouldn't have mattered. You'd already decided I was worthless. You'd already chosen Maya over me. You want to know something funny?" She almost smiled. "Maya called me last month. She's working as a waitress now, living with some guy who treats her the way you treated me. She wanted to catch up, as if we were old friends who'd simply lost touch." Nick's shoulders shook. "Karla, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. If I could go back. But you can't. And neither can I. You taught me something valuable, Nick. You taught me that some people will show you exactly who they are when the chips are down. You taught me that loyalty and love are luxuries some people can't afford when things get difficult." She stepped back toward the warmth and light of her home, where Charles was reading bedtime stories to James and Emma, where Mrs. Chen was preparing hot chocolate, where her real family waited. "I learned that lesson well, Nick. And now you get to learn it too. Please," he whispered. "I'm desperate." "I know," she said softly. "But I won't keep paying for dead weight." The door closed with quiet finality. For a moment, she stood there, hand against the wood, feeling the storm outside raging where once it had raged inside her. Then she turned back into the house, where Charles was waiting. "You okay?" he asked, searching her face. Karla nodded, a single tear slipping free, not of sadness, but of release. "Yes, for the first time in years, I really am." Through the window, she watched him walk away into the rain, shoulders bowed under the weight of choices that had finally come home to roost. Justice, it seemed, had a sense of poetry. 6 months later, Karla stood at the altar in the gardens of Rosewood Manor, Charles's hands warm in hers as they exchanged vows before 200 of their closest friends and family. James and Emma served as ring-bearers, their laughter like music in the spring air. The wedding was featured on the covers of 3 magazines. The Henderson Winters Union was called the wedding of the decade. As they kissed to seal their union, Karla caught sight of the sprawling grounds, the business empire she'd built, the children who called Charles daddy, the staff who were family, the life that had risen from the ashes of betrayal. Later, as they danced under stars that sparkled like the diamonds in her tiara, Charles whispered in her ear, "Any regrets?" Karla looked across the ballroom, her ballroom in her hotel on her estate, filled with people who genuinely loved her, who'd earned the right to be there. "Only one," she murmured back. What's that? She smiled, remembering a broken woman sleeping on a park bench, pregnant and alone, with no idea that she was about to inherit the world. I regret that it took me so long to realize that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing in disguise. In the end, Karla learned that betrayal, while devastating, can be a gift wrapped in pain. It strips away illusions and reveals the true character of those around us. The people who abandon us in our darkest hour save us from wasting our lives on relationships built on shifting sand. Nick and Maya thought they were discarding someone they deemed worthless, but they were actually setting free someone destined for greatness. Their betrayal didn't break Karla. It broke her open, allowing light to enter the cracks and grow into something magnificent. The universe has a peculiar sense of justice. Those who lift others up during difficult times often find themselves lifted in return. Those who kick people when they're down often discover that karma keeps very detailed records. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or enabling those who've wronged us. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do, for ourselves and for them, is to allow people to experience the natural consequences of their choices. True success isn't just about wealth or status. It's about surrounding yourself with people who see your worth when you can't see it yourself, who stand by you when standing is hard, who choose you again and again, especially when you have nothing to offer but your heart. And perhaps, most importantly, never underestimate the person you think is broken. They might just be gathering their strength to build something extraordinary from the pieces of their shattered life. In the end, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living so well that your former enemies become footnotes in a story that was always about your triumph. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to discover you were capable of having it all. Thanks for spending time with us today. If this story moved you, show it some love by liking, sharing, and subscribing. We share new stories every week to warm your heart and spark conversation. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love connecting with you. Another secret waits in the next story. Will you be there?